very well attended as well. But without further ado, what I'd like to do is to ask Dave Anderson to open the proceedings. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks very much, Liz, and it's good to see some faces I recognise and those I don't. We set this APPG up about 11 years ago. Sat in Mushtaq, Lasharie, on some of the parliamentarians, and the basis of the APPG is to try and build a better world, build on peace, democracy and justice, and we can certainly use that when we're discussing the subject we're talking about tonight. I was talking to Mushtaq earlier on, so it must be at least 10 years since we had the first discussion in this building with the APPG about Kashmir. And I was going to say that in those 10 years nothing has changed, but sadly, as you well know, things have changed, and they've changed for the worse. And it is about the powers that be across the world not facing up the fact that they made a mistake 70 years ago. And the unfortunate thing is, it wasn't the only mistake they made in the last century. Our company in particular was responsible for drawing lines on a map across the world, which had a huge impact on people. See today the discussions, what's going on in Israel with President Trump, the mistakes that were made there when they created that unholy mess. The situation in Iraq and Iran, where we've got the Kurds who were split across 4 different borders. The whole of Africa, where constantly we've had problems, and near to home, the issues around Ireland and Northern Ireland. And part of the problem is we have states, and our country is probably more to blame than most, who hate to admit they were wrong. And they were massively wrong in 1948. But things have moved on in recent times, and particularly they've moved on in the wrong direction. You'll know only too well that the revocation of Article 370 back in October effectively gives India the right to subsume Kashmir fully in the Indian state. We've had an increase in people being killed, both soldiers and civilians, and militias starting to move on both sides. Pakistan's very, very clear how dangerous it can be for the potential for a war between the 2 neighbouring nuclear states, which is very, very worrying. I used to get quite concerned when I was in this place when people were so worried about the build-up of the potential for nuclear weapons in Iran. And so what about the potential for 2 countries that already have nuclear weapons, let alone worrying about the state that hasn't as yet got them? There has been approaches made at the United Nations, but as usual the United Nations hasn't been able to make any real inroads. The fact that the Indian government has closed down the internet and social networks raises tensions massively. If we discussed this 10 years ago, if they closed down the internet, it probably wouldn't have had the impact it has now. But you think now how far people, how much more people are reliant on social media, even from the point of view of people in this country want to speak around the back home in Kashmir, want to get information, see what's going on. That's completely been closed. And is this any way for a modern ally of ours to be here? Well, Government Johnny, my real worry is, and this is not being partly political, because when I was in the House, I was a member of the Labour Party throughout 70 years plus since the creation of Pakistan and India has not done the right thing. But the particular worry I have today is that because of the situation we're in, when we're looking to do trade deals across the world, the last thing we want to do is fall out with anybody. Certainly won't want to fall out with the Americans, and we definitely won't want to fall out with India, who would be a huge trading partner for us at a time when our links with Europe are going to be released. So I don't think that even if we wanted to, that our government will take any real action that will actually make anything. So the question for us is, what can we do? Well, there's an easy answer. You can give up. You can stop trying. But would you want to do it? You wouldn't be here tonight if that was your view. Certainly, for the people who are working here, there is a number of things you can do. First and foremost, make sure your own MP is aware of how people feel about what's going on. It shouldn't be allowed to be a secret. It shouldn't be allowed to not be in the news that this is going on. There's huge avenues within this place to make public your concerns. There's questions, both oral and written. You can lobby your MPs, you can lobby the ministers. People like Liz can put early emotions down, they can do the German debates, they can ask for backbench business debates. You've got to keep the pressure on. If you give up, then you know what will happen. An old friend of mine used to say, if you keep running, they'll keep chasing you. But if you stop and turn around and face up them, they've got to stop too. So I think the advice, for what it's worth from me tonight, is quite somewhere. I don't like, I'm an eternal optimist, but it's hard to be optimistic, given the history that we all know about, given the fact of where we are today in an international situation that's possibly unprecedented, given the nature of the leaders in the world, particularly the Americans, and their very, very lopsided view of what is the right thing and the wrong thing to do. I'll be very, very surprised if they put it on the side of giving Kashmir the importance it needs, but that doesn't make it say we shouldn't keep trying. With that in mind, I'm going to call a couple of speakers. We are aiming to finish at 7:30, no later than 7:30, because we do have a reception across in the main building in room C on the terrace, let's see all there. We're hoping that we might be joined by some other parliamentarians, but that's enough from me. So I'd like to call on Victoria Schofield, who was an author who was written prodigiously on the situation in Kashmir. She's just telling us she's hoping to go back again later in the year if she gets a visa, which we hope she will, no problem. So Victoria, it's all yours. Thank you.
About the abrogation of Article 370 and the unprecedented security lockdown in Kashmir by the Indian government on August 5th, 2019. I couldn't come up with a coherent answer. I'd spent 2 days in an ATM queue in order to get enough cash to buy air tickets to fly out of Kashmir with my kids. Debit and cards don't work because the network has been shut down, followed by half a day of waiting at the airport because of flight delays. No phones work, so you can't call the airport to check your flight status. And this was a relatively good day. The previous 5 days, we weren't allowed to move out of our house by armed paramilitary men. I couldn't get medicine for my 4-year-old son who had a chest infection. Supplies were running out. But from day 3 on, we had no electricity. Most of my friends and neighbours, activists, trade union leaders, and mainstream politicians had been arrested, and since the jails in Kashmir were all full, more than 70 being sent to a prison in Agra, India. No contact with the outside world. It was basically a prison sentence without a pronouncement. How does one describe such a catastrophic chain of events adequately and objectively, especially if one's caught up in it? All I could say at the time was that it was a Holocaust by other means, a state-led attempt at the erasure of an identity, a body of rights and citizenship, the attempted erasure of a community's place in the world. People who don't know much about Kashmir wonder what warranted this sudden and unilateral revocation of a constitutional provision that has allowed the people of Jammu and Kashmir to have their own constitutional flag and the right to define its own citizenship with rights and privileges for nearly 70 years. The answer is that the BJP's majoritarian agenda of homogenizing India after the pattern of an idealized Hindu past, coming to power with a huge majority in the national elections in May 2019 has meant for the BJP the overt execution of its covert Hindutva agenda. The Indian Muslim, who'd hitherto been othered and lynched with chilling regularity by Hindu extremists across the northern states, is now facing a state-led assault on her rights and citizenship. The abrogation of Article 370 in Kashmir and the National Register of Citizens externing hundreds of Assamese Muslims as illegal immigrants are two sides of the same coin. Now that's what a friend of mine, a young Kashmiri woman, wrote to me. She wrote in an article, sent it to me soon after Article 370 had been abrogated. And I think tonight what we want to focus on, as we need to focus on at all times, is this humanitarian aspect. We're not talking about a piece of real estate. We're not talking about just some land, which countries have been arguing about. We're talking about land that's inhabited by people just like us. And I think to have read that out to you in the 21st century, where you're talking about not being able to get out to get medicines, these are all rights we take for granted. It is true that as of today, internet 2G, we all know about 4G and 5G, 2G has been restored in Kashmir after 6 months. And I think again, as Dave said, 10 years ago, if we'd said, well, no internet, we might have thought perhaps that doesn't matter. But people's lives depend now on the internet. Imagine what it would be like if we suddenly had the internet cut off on a grid system throughout London. And I think this is what sometimes does get left out of the narrative, is that people are just trying to lead lives like us. They're trying to get their children to school. They're trying to get their children educated. When I was in Kashmir in the valley last summer, just before all this happened, I went to talk to a school. There were 150 young boys and girls, aged about 16 to 17. And it was heartbreaking listening to their aspirations. One of them said to me, I want to write poetry. Do you think I can write poetry? Another said, I'd like to come to university in the UK. Do you think I can manage that? You see them lined up trying to take their exams, and then there's a curfew, and then there's lockdown. A maths teacher said to me, you have no idea how difficult it is for to get students to finish the syllabus, because if the schools are shut and they don't have their syllabus, you've got to persuade children to work during their holidays, etc., etc. And so I think, as Dave said, if we care about Jammu and Kashmir and peace in the world and humanitarian issues, we should continue to be informed. So many people have said to me, oh, you've been writing about Kashmir for a long time, why didn't you give up? And I always have to say no, because if I turn my back, I will lose the opportunity of being there when there is a slither of an opportunity for peace. And so I urge you and you to find 10 other people and 10 other people to find 10 other people to keep informed. Keep your members of parliament informed. We are in the great houses of parliament here. Let people know that we don't just not care about it because it's out of sight. It's the most beautiful place in the world, and it deserves better than it's got. And if you're all free on February the 6th, I don't know if you've heard about No Fathers in Kashmir. It's a beautiful film which is being it's been made by an Indian with Indian actresses. I've already seen it. I'm on a panel on February the 6th, Genesis Cinema, Mile End. It's on in numerous other places. And I think, again, if you saw this film, you would capture the humanity of what is Kashmir. Thank you.
Due course, because a friend of mine's just come in there from Northern Ireland, and one of the big flashpoints in Northern Ireland was when the government, our government started in terms of the papers of trial. So, I'd now like to ask Lord Hussain from Luton, so just to make the place.
Good evening and assalamu alaikum to everyone. Many of you here would know that I'm among very few people in the room who originate from that region, from Kashmir. My family comes from Kashmir. I was born in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, which is divided, as you all know, with a line of control between, which runs through the state, and I'm from the Pakistan side of line of control. What we have heard today, it is a very small example of what is actually happening. What Victoria has just illustrated, it shows a glimpse of the situation in Indian Kashmir. Very few people actually get to know, because our media is so biased that we don't get to hear not even 1/10 of the real situation in Kashmir, in this country. For example, how many people in this country, or even in this room, will know that there is a law which is applied in Kashmir, which is known as Armed Forces Special Power Act. And nowhere else in India that law is enforced for continuous 40 years. And in Kashmir's case, since 1990, how many years? 30 years, not 40 years. I mean, army has been there since 1947, but with the special powers. Now, with those special powers, army is been given a license to kill. no questions asked. You cannot challenge any action of the army in any court of law. And what we have known, and Kashmiri knows very well, army goes rounds up areas and take out men, take them to the torture cells, torture the male and rape women. It's not me only saying it. Even in the Indian human rights workers have picked up so many cases, including the very famous case of Qurban Pushpara, where many years ago this army moved into their two villages called Qunan and Pushpara next to each other. The army moves in, takes all the men to the torture camps and rape all women from the 8 to 80. No female was left. Every one of them was raped. Not a single case has been successfully prosecuted. No person has been prosecuted ever. That is the kind of situation that Kashmiris are living under. Our boys, the Kashmiri boys, aged from 10, 12, are being taken in and tortured. Many of them, their bodies have been found on the street sites. So far, over 100,000 people have been killed. Thousands of women have been raped. And there are thousands of missing people. And one term that is often known in Kashmir, it is half widows. If thousands of those women whose husbands have disappeared, and they are left with no option. They keep going to the police station, to the detention centers, the prisons, to find out with their photographs of their loved ones, where have they gone? And they can't find them. And they don't know. Those women, they call themselves, or they're named as half widows, because in the religion, unless it is clear that somebody has died, they can't even remarry. They don't know about their future. What can they do? There are women who have been in that situation for 10, 15, 18 years. And on the top of that, now that we've heard about the abrogation of this law, again, when the Maharaja, the India claimed that the Maharaja acceded the state of Jammu and Kashmir with India, these were the conditions laid down. This was the contract between the Maharaja and the Indian government, that this is what Kashmir will have. It will have all this special power, this special status within the Indian Union. And what has happened? This present government has withdrawn their part of the contract and taken in 13,000 new people, the other 10,000 which are already in prison, including Shabir Shah. Now, how many people would know Shabir Shah has never ever lifted a gun in his hand, and he has been in prison for more than 25 years. He is the second Nelson Mandela, but nobody knows about him. There are many others like Shabir Shah who have been in prison for years and years and years. And what for? Because they keep asking India to abide by the international laws. And now, once they have abrogated this 370 and 35A, they have taken in 13,000 people who are, many of them are lawyers, trade unionists, and political workers, including 3 former chief ministers. And one of those chief ministers was the chief minister in coalition with the BJP, only until a few weeks ago, before the 5th of August when they abrogated the law. So, and there's no charge on them, other than 1 or 2 leaders have been charged with Public Safety Act. There's no serious charge on them, but they're put behind the bars. This is the situation, and now others that Victoria has very eloquently illustrated, the loss of internet and the consequences it has on ordinary people's life in hospitals, in schools, in colleges, and everywhere else, in airports and so forth. What I have spoken to many people, including Indian parliamentarians who were on visit here in this parliament last week, And the problem is that even the truth is being hidden from the Indian public. And what is running at the moment is RSS, the far-right Hindu organization, is running the government. Amit Shah, he's an RSS member, who is the internal minister for the country, and they're running the show. And what can you say about the country who's, if not the largest beef producer in the world, is among the largest ones in the world? India is a beef producing country. And yet, Muslims are being lynched for killing a cow. What on earth is happening? And there's no cases being, of prosecution against those who do this kind of things. Now, and then we've got all sorts of things happening right across India now with the citizenship amendment and so forth. And because we haven't got a lot of time to discuss all that, but all I can say to you all is, and every time I speak to the audience like yours, I say to people, please write to your members of parliament. It is very, very important, because when I speak to my colleagues in the House of Commons, say, Qurban, I have 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 Pakistanis or Kashmiris living in my constituency, but I don't get many letters in the post from them. It is your duty. If you are really sincere about this cause, if you want the members of parliament in this country to raise this issue with the government, I have to say I'm very disappointed with the action of the government. I was raising this question last week in the House of Lords. I mentioned all this, what I've said to you now, the atrocities happening. And I said, well, is it not, India actually violating the Commonwealth, the Commonwealth laws? And he says, the minister's response was, India is the largest democracy. Well, if it's the largest democracy, is this what democracy is? Now, what I'm asking you to do is, please write to your members of parliament and ask them to raise this issue, and hopefully one day, this government may well sit down with India and say, well, enough is enough, and let's have international human rights laws implemented in that country, which calls itself the largest democracy on earth, and let's have some democracy in that region too. If we can in this country have 2 referendums in 2-3 years time, whether we like the result of them or not, some of them will agree with one or the other. All Kashmiris are asking for is the right to decide about their future. And if that is, if India calls this a democracy, well, this is, what else is a democracy? You give people their right. And this is what Kashmiris are asking for. If we can all ask our British government to say to India, if we can offer this to the people of Scotland, why can't you offer that to people of Kashmir?
So that was a really insight of our government should have challenges. When it's happening with the state, with the history that we have with them, and the responsibility that we've got as a state, even though it was 70 years ago, the people in here did carry that burden, we should definitely be doing exactly what we said and not letting this lie the way it has. So thank you very much for that. I've been suggested that Mr. Mushtaq would like to make a contribution, is that right?
Well, let me first introduce myself. I was born in India in upper caste Hindu family. And believe it or not, I was a member of the RSS for about 4 or 5 months when I was a high school student. And so I have got direct experience with what is going on now. This didn't start yesterday. This started 70 years ago in India, in the world's largest democracy. We just heard about it. Now, in 1952, Nehru, at that time India's Prime Minister, said this in the Indian Parliament: if after a proper plebiscite I don't know what he meant by proper plebiscite. The people of Kashmir said, we do not want to be with India. We are committed to accept that. We will accept it, though it might pain us. We will not send any army against them. We will accept that. However hurt we might feel about it, we will change the constitution if necessary. Few months later, in a televised speech, Nehru said, he went further than this, we do not wish to win the people against their will. With the help of armed force, and if the people want to part company with us, they may go their way and we shall go ours. We want no forced marriage, no forced union. Now, that was 1952. And that plebiscite never took place. Now, 17 years later, what we are witnessing? Need to first of all try to understand why is this happening? Well, if Nehru was a liberal prime minister and Modi is a proto-fascist, so why is this happening in the same country within a span of 70 years? Now, Modi is not an accident. Nehru was not an accident either. There is a development. During the independence movement, two currents existed side by side in the Indian history of the long independence history, history of the independence movement. One was a kind of liberal side. It was called Indian nationalism. In reality, it was Hindu nationalism with a liberal face. And there was also another trend side by side, the Hindu nationalism, which was developed by an organization called Hindu Mahasabha. Later on, there was another organization which was an offspring of offshoot of Hindu Mahasabha, the Janasan, which has now become the BJP or the Bharatiya Janata Party. So it is not an accident. These two trends have been there side by side all along. And the question is, what is the source of all these? Where is this so-called Indian nationalism and later on the Hindu nationalism? Where it is coming from? My own idea is that it is coming from specifically its source is the Hindu religion in which I was born. Hindu religion is based on caste system. It has fascist trends. It was started, I don't know who started this casteism. Historians still don't agree on it. But we all know, well, at least we read it in history when I was a school student, that it came from the Aryans. Now that is even disputed now. But whether it started by the Aryans or not, there is an apartheid in India against the untouchables. And this religion, which is based on casteism, is the source of all the things which you see today. And it's been happening there all along for the last 70 years. Now I'll just end with some observations on the BJP. Who are these people? I say the class is about 250 million people. And they have got aspirations. This is going on over the last 10 or 20 years. They dislike any rights for the lower caste, the untouchables. It's not simply just right to MPs and talking and trying to get their support. It's also, we need a much wider than that. And I'm very happy, very pleased to see the Labour Party passing a resolution on Kashmir last time. They haven't implemented it. I don't expect them to implement it. But at least they have passed the resolution. And I think we can go on from there. So I appeal to every party in this country, every political party, and every MP to not to ignore the situation of growing fascism in India, but to act on it. And one of the steps, as I said, will be gathering like this, but much wider than this. Thank you.
Because the speakers have been so well disciplined, we've probably got about 10 minutes if they want to ask questions or give comments.
Doing anything about it. They have obviously commented, they have asked India to review this Citizen Amendment Act, but they have not raised any questions about Kashmir. What is the lockdown which is going on and all the atrocities and excesses that are taking place in India. No one is commenting. Media is very quiet here, apart from some other international channels, satellite channels. UK, Europe, America is not commenting on it. Why is that? Just because India is economically strong?
The UN has had exceptionally 2 meetings. They have been closed door, but it's the first time they've had any meetings at all. So it's not been totally silent. And likewise, Congress has had 2 hearings on human rights. And I went myself to Washington for a briefing for Congress on the human rights situation. And so it's not that there's been nothing going on. The EU has been commenting as well. But it's the problem as we face going the next step and obliging India. No country has any force to oblige India to do anything other than what India wants to do. I think the gentleman's point is very interesting regarding Hindutva. I remember a long time ago, about 15 years ago, I saw a liberal Indian in Delhi, and she warned me of this also. She said, we'll see that this has been creeping, this Hindutva, which actually dates from the 1930s. The RSS was modelled on Mussolini's fascism. And again, I think this is where knowledge is important to know. But I think again, we can't just expect bodies to do things. We have to make the bodies, we form the bodies. And so we have to lobby the bodies to take an initiative. I actually think it was very significant that within India, the Indian Supreme Court said that forthwith the internet had to be restored. And what you want is civil society in India to wake up. Not have other countries, but have the people within India, the maybe 250 million middle class who are espousing Hindutva principles. But there are a lot of other decent Indians, and I think that's what one has to lobby and believe on.
Yes.
Well, just on that point of United Nations, you may also know, as well as the recent meetings that Victoria just made a reference to, after a very long silence, the United Nations have started raising questions on the human rights situation in the Indian side of Kashmir. In 2018 was the first time when the United Nations Commission for Human Rights wrote a big report on human rights, and it asked both India and Pakistan for free access for the United Nations Commission to go investigate the reports of human rights violations. India has flatly refused, and Pakistan has then said that if India agrees, we have no problem. And then they reiterated the same request in 2019 and asked both governments. And I actually went to Islamabad and I spoke to some of the ministers of Imran Khan, and I said, well, because I travel throughout Pakistan, I travel through the Pakistan side of Kashmir, and I don't see if Pakistan government has anything to hide at all. And therefore I said, why don't you just say yes, come and have a look. On our side, we're happy for you to see. And actually, the ministers did agree. He said, oh, to be honest, this is what we're going to do. We are going to ask the United Nations if they really want to come in. They're welcome to come and have a look in Azad Kashmir side of the line of control. But India has once again said, no, it is our internal matter. Who is United Nations? We are not allowing any internal body. Now here, again, if anybody can do anything about it, is the United Nations, the permanent member of the Security Council. If they make it mandatory for that commission to go and investigate in Kashmir, they can. And Britain being a permanent member of that Security Council, we can put pressure on our own government here to say, why don't you? Isn't it enough? Why don't you? All we're asking for is independent body going in there and to investigate who are these missing persons, where have they gone, and there are thousands of mass graves being identified in Kashmir, and the United Nations wants to investigate who is buried in those, as they did in former Yugoslavia. And that is one thing that we can all ask our own MPs, to ask the government to help the United Nations Commission for Human Rights to go in there and investigate.
Both these reports are online, by the way, so everybody can read the reports, and they make very interesting reading. And the one thing we haven't actually mentioned is nowhere else in the world do security forces use pellets against their citizens.
Yeah. I'll let you come by and look. I have got a little bit of one to come short brief, please.
Just very quickly, like Gambia, now, country like, such a small country like Gambia has brought Myanmar, Burma, to account for their atrocities in their own country is Rohingya Muslims. Why can't another country or other group can make a case against India regarding these missing persons and all the atrocities that are taking place at the International Court of Justice or the Criminal Court, International Criminal Court? Why can't they?
Well, that's something that we can ask over MPs, I think, what we can do now. Nearly over there, please.
Well, it's saddens to hear all of this violations of human rights. I have two little short comments. The first one is, I think a big campaign for creating awareness within the British public, but this campaign, it will gain a lot of weight if some decent people from the Indian people as well to join forces together and try to carry. That will carry a lot of weight to any MP and prompt him to do something about it. The other point is that I don't know if this is true or not, but I'd like somebody to clarify it for me. I came to know that if any MP has a letter signed by 20 people in his constituency, that he is forced by law to mention it in the houses, in the parliament. Is this true or not? Because it would be easy to get 20 signatures, so you have more and more to put pressure everywhere. Thank you.
That's that one.
Yeah.
No, there isn't such a rule, but it is true that the more people, the more constituents contact you, it adds weight to the concerns that are being raised and is very helpful, as you're saying so.
Anybody else? John there.
There are enough United Nations resolutions on Kashmir. I'm sure Dr. Hussain will verify that. Why is the United Nations not able to have those implemented by countries like India? I mean, Pakistan is open to have that and give the right to self-determination to people of Kashmir. Why can't the United Nations do that? Why can't they actually have someone? I mean, they send forces all over Africa and wherever, but such kind of atrocities that we've been made aware of tonight are really shameful, hurtful in fact.
One thing is more is right, because last 71 years and now it's the 6 months, the world is watching the big demonstration on the street in London. 10 Downings, all MPs, they're all aware. Lord Qurban saying in last 10 years I'm in London, I'm listening by you people, by member of parliament. So write your letter or your parliament, write a letter to your MPs. Now social media is very active. Every day people killing by them. Now as my friend said, he's a Hindu by caste, Hindus are not happy, minorities are not happy in India. Whatever Christians, whatever Muslim, whatever Dalit, whatever anyone. But thing is, as he said, United Nations role, and unfortunately is very bad luck for our Muslim people, OIC, not doing any plus positive role. So I'm asking and I'm begging you, why you don't ask yourself, your Prime Minister, Johnson, please after the 31st of January, Brexit is going to end up. Please let it start, because the 2 million Kashmiris living in London, in UK I mean, and a 20-30 member parliamentarian belongs to Kashmir. And still we are begging, we are writing emails and nothing. Last 6 months, you know, my wife asking me, my kids, they are going in uni and college, what's going on? Media, they have in their own interest. Commercialisms, capitalisms. The thing is, otherwise we have to say, Kashmiris, bye-bye, let's do yourself, and we say, we can't do anything more. So, Mr. Qurban, Mr. Lasharie, really you're doing good job. Since long time I'm coming and going and coming up and go and do nothing. Like talk and do nothing. Please.
Okay. On the social security, on the United Nations resolutions, I'm not an expert on that issue, but however, there are 2 sections, I believe, of United Nations resolutions. One is if you take action on section 6, I think, is those decisions taken under section 6 are not mandatory. Therefore, they are only advisory. And if the decisions are taken under section 7, then they become mandatory and the United Nations can take force and get them implemented. In Kashmir's case, it is the advisory side of the decisions that they've taken. So they're not, it does not give the United Nations to take force and enforce those decisions. That is the reality. If it was taken by the section which allows the United Nations to take action unilaterally, then it would have happened, but this is not the case in Kashmir. It is advisory resolutions.
Dr. Qurban, you would appreciate the fact that the 1948 resolution, actually India was a member of the UN at the time and agreed to implement that resolution.
No, but I think, I mean, just to elaborate on that, Lord Hussain is exactly right that there is no mandatory, sorry, if you read those resolutions, they were recommendations. The UN was called in as a body in order to affect have the holding of the plebiscite, create the conditions for the holding of the plebiscite. And but it had no mandatory authority. Once one or other party decided they no longer wanted to hold the plebiscite, it had no mandatory authority to force them to do so. And notwithstanding the quotation from Nehru in 1952, India decided for its own reasons that it no longer wished to hold the plebiscite. It said it had elections. And one of the sticking points, and this is also for Pakistan to understand, was in terms of the troop withdrawal. And they couldn't get the preconditions organized. And that enabled India to say that the preconditions are not being observed, therefore we can't hold the plebiscite for time past. And it's really worth for everybody, young and old, to understand the UN, because a lot of air is wasted blaming the UN for not doing things when it actually it doesn't have the mandate to do it, and it is particularly in relation to this Article 6 or Article 7. It may well have got vetoed actually if it had been brought in under Article 7. But I think it's important that we all understand that, because otherwise we waste our time worrying why the UN hasn't done something when it's not able to do so. And if you read the Owen Dixon report, 1950, he was sent to look at both areas and travelled throughout both sides of Jammu and Kashmir. And he identified the problems which exist today. And again, I advertise to students, read this Owen Dixon report. We're not saying anything new. He identified in 1950 what the problems were of dealing with both the governments of India and Pakistan.
Beautiful. I know we have to finish in 4 minutes, so I'm going to ask Mushtaq to take no longer than 3.5.
Again, Hussain, so much has been discussed, but I just want to say thank you to you, Chris, who have traveled all the way from Durham to come and attend the meeting. I have been this afternoon here. United Nations was discussed yesterday in Fabian Society, the role of progressive people in 2020. And I asked them a question, and Sandra asked a question on Belt and Road Initiative, and I asked them on United Nations. And Victoria, their answer was that the structure of United Nations is so bad, it has 5 permanent members who can stop anything happening until they all 5 agree.
Yeah, but that's what I mean.
I'm just giving, but you are right. Resolution on Iraq was implemented by force, but I think India is too big to be implemented, or the interests are different, which Dave has already said. I think the difference, Kumar Sarkar, thank you for elaborating, difference in between Nehru and Modi we can see. From a secular country to a very Hindu country. But can I ask you, how many of you have written to your MP about Kashmir? Raise your hands. Oh, wonderful. So there is your MP today. I hope he or she will join us later on. I have spoken to some of them, but they always are frightened because of their economic interest, which Dave has already mentioned. That India is a country where, after Brexit, you are saying they should pressurize. I think they will go and beg them that we want to have a trade a negotiation with you and future trade agreement. So I think it is our duty to pressurize that economic interest should not come above the lives of the people who are being killed and are under siege. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for coming. I actually made a mistake in the beginning. The reception isn't open to the public, which I thought it was, but so I'm afraid I'll not be able to invite you across the road. See you again in the future. Thanks very much.
Thank you.